It was supposed to be just another Monday morning at Riverstone Transit, but in less than 5 minutes, a retired K-9 would claw open a secret that chilled the blood of every officer who saw it. No one noticed the suitcase at first. Not until Trooper started growling like he had back in Afghanistan, like something was alive inside. And he was right. The morning fog hadn't lifted yet. Gray mist rolled through the parking lot, wrapping around tired commuters clutching coffee cups and tote bags. Riverstone Transit was one of those sleepy stations just outside Columbus, Ohio, where nothing ever happened until it did. Officer Dana Blake leaned against her patrol car with a half-eaten protein bar in one hand and a leash in the other. At her side stood Trooper, her loyal German shepherd. His coat was peppered with gray, his movements deliberate, but his eyes still burned with purpose. Trooper wasn't just any dog. He was a retired Marine K-9 trained to sniff out explosives, alert to hidden dangers, and stand between death and his handler without a second thought. After years in the military and 2 years of quiet retirement, Trooper had been reinstated under a local K-9 pilot program to assist officers in low-risk patrols. Dana, herself a veteran and now a quiet, observant cop in her mid-30s, was the perfect match for him. Their bond was silent but solid. The bus station's PA system crackled overhead. A woman with a stroller tried to keep her toddler from chasing pigeons. 2 teenagers argued over earbuds. Everything was normal until it wasn't. Trooper stopped mid-stride. "Troop, what is it?" Dana followed his gaze. The dog's ears perked forward. His body froze. A slow growl rumbled from his chest. Then he lunged, pulling Dana a few feet forward. Nose low, tail stiff like a rod. He locked onto a tattered maroon suitcase, resting beneath a wooden bench near the far end of the platform. Scuffed corners, one busted wheel, nothing unusual, except it had no tag. No one nearby claimed it, and Trooper's behavior had flipped from casual to combat mode in seconds. Dana squinted. "Okay, that's not right." Trooper began scratching at the suitcase with both paws. Not the way he would for narcotics, not even the way he used to for explosives. This was different. Frantic, almost desperate. Dana's instincts kicked in. She waved a hand toward a nearby transit officer. "Clear the platform. Get everyone back now." Commuters stared as the warning echoed across the platform. A security guard asked, "Bomb threat?" "Could be," Dana answered, keeping her eyes on the suitcase and her hand on her weapon. "Could be worse." Trooper let out a sharp bark. She stepped closer. "Trooper, stay." But he didn't. He whined. He scratched again. Then he did something he hadn't done since Kabul. He sat stiff, silent, eyes locked on the suitcase like it was haunted. If you've made it this far into the story, you know this isn't just about a forgotten bag. It's about instinct, loyalty, and how one dog saw what no one else could. If you believe in the power of animals to save lives, subscribe now to the channel. We bring you true stories of courage, loyalty, and the unspoken bond between heroes with paws and the people they protect. Dispatch, this is 7 Charlie 6. Possible threat. I need backup. Bomb squad and Child Protective Services on standby. Dana's voice was calm, but her hands were starting to sweat. She crouched down slowly, her eyes meeting Trooper's. "Talk to me, buddy. What is it?" Just then, Dana heard something faint. A sound so soft, she almost thought she imagined it. A whimper. She looked around. Nobody else seemed to notice. Then it came again. A soft, muffled sob. Not a grown person, not an animal, a child. Dana's breath caught in her chest. Her heart pounded as she stepped closer to the suitcase. Trooper whimpered now, too, like he couldn't bear it. "God," she whispered. "There's someone in there." But she couldn't open it yet. Protocol said to wait. Bomb squad was 10 minutes out. Every instinct screamed at her to do something, but if it was rigged, she'd be the one responsible. She backed away and tried to think, but then the suitcase moved, just an inch, barely enough to notice. Dana drew her sidearm. "Everyone stay back," she barked again. The area was already mostly cleared, but a few people were still watching from behind a fence near the station entrance. Trooper pawed the suitcase again, then barked loud, sharp, 2 times like he used to when signaling human life detected. Dana stared at it. Then, without asking permission from anyone, she dropped to her knees and unzipped it. The zipper gave a reluctant rasp. A pungent smell hit her first. Sweat, duct tape, old cloth. Then she saw it, a small sneaker, pink and yellow. Then eyes blinking wide, terrified. The boy couldn't have been older than 4. His mouth was taped, his wrists bound, his knees pulled to his chest like a turtle. He was alive. Jesus! Dana gasped. She reached in and pulled the child into her arms. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just trembled in her arms like he'd been cold for a long time. Trooper licked his hand gently, and the boy blinked. Dana radioed again. "This is Blake. We have a live child. Repeat, live child. Abducted. Request ambulance and immediate trauma response. I am holding the child now." The boy's eyes met hers. They were dark, confused, and hollow. "Hey, sweetheart," Dana whispered, already tearing the tape from his mouth with trembling hands. "You're safe. We've got you. You're safe now." Paramedics arrived within 2 minutes. The boy was rushed to St. Mary's Pediatric R. Dana wouldn't let anyone else ride with him except her and Trooper. The dog never left the boy's side. And back at the bus station, investigators had only one question. Who left a living child zipped inside a suitcase? The suitcase had no prints, no name, no tag. But Trooper had already caught a faint trail, one that would lead them deeper than anyone was ready for. The sirens faded as the ambulance turned the corner, racing towards St. Mary's Hospital. Officer Dana Blake sat beside the boy in the back, one hand gripping the stretcher rail, the other gently resting on Trooper's shoulder. The German shepherd hadn't looked away from the child for even a second. His amber eyes were fixed, calm, but alert, his breathing steady, ears rotating with every shift in sound. The boy still hadn't spoken. He clutched Dana's sleeve like it was the only thing tethering him to reality. No tears, no words, just that blank, hollow stare. He was too quiet for a 4-year-old, and that told Dana everything she needed to know. He was traumatized in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As the EMT checked vitals, Dana kept thinking about the suitcase. How long had he been in there? Who put him there? And why was there no missing child report that matched his face? She was still turning over questions when her phone buzzed. Detective Ray Moreno. Dana swiped to answer. "Talk to me." "We checked the surveillance footage," Ray said. "You're not going to like it." "I'm already not liking any of it," she muttered. Timestamp 5:42 a.m. today. Someone in a gray hoodie left the suitcase under the bench. The camera angle doesn't catch their face. No license plate either, just a bus pulling away right after. Any leads? Ray exhaled. "We're running image enhancement and tracking down the bus, but this was intentional. Whoever did this didn't panic. They were calm. That suitcase was zipped up tight like they'd done it before." Dana's stomach dropped. "Like they've done it before." "Just a theory," Ray added. "But something about this doesn't feel like a first-time dump." She looked at the boy, who now had an oxygen mask over his mouth. "We'll talk more at the hospital." When the ambulance doors opened at St. Mary's, a pediatric trauma team was already waiting. The boy was rushed down the hall on a stretcher, flanked by nurses and techs. Dana and Trooper followed until they hit the authorized personnel-only line. Dana stopped. Trooper didn't. He tried to follow, whining when the automatic door shut between him and the boy. "It's okay," she whispered, kneeling down. "You did your job. You found him. Let them take care of him now." But Trooper wouldn't sit. He stood at the door, tail still, eyes forward. Back in the waiting room, the air reeked of antiseptic and burned coffee. Dana sat in a plastic chair, arms crossed, watching local news footage play on a muted TV overhead. The story had already made it to the press. The headline crawled across the screen. "Boy found in suitcase at Riverstone Transit. Suspect at large." She hated how quickly the media jumped in. They never got the details right. They didn't talk about how it felt, how it shook you. She rubbed her temples and looked over at Trooper, now lying down but still facing the hallway. He hadn't relaxed since they arrived. That's when Dr. Megan Price, the ER lead, came in. "Officer Blake, Dana stood. That's me. The boy is stable, dehydrated, hypothermic, and he's got marks on his wrists and ankles consistent with binding, but no broken bones, no internal bleeding. Dana nodded slowly. Did he say anything? Dr. Price hesitated. He hasn't spoken a word. He responds to touch and light, but he hasn't given us his name or even nodded when we ask questions. Dana looked toward the hallway. Can I see him? Dr. Price motioned her forward. Yes, but keep it calm. We're trying not to overwhelm him. The room was quiet except for the beeping monitor. The boy lay curled up, now dressed in a fresh hospital gown, arms tucked close to his chest. His tiny face looked cleaner, but still distant, like he hadn't come back to the present yet. Dana sat beside him. Hey there, she said softly. Remember me? I'm Dana, and this big guy is Trooper. He helped find you today. At the sound of Trooper's name, the boy blinked. Then, just barely, he moved his eyes toward the door. Trooper stepped in. The boy's fingers twitched. Do you like dogs? Dana asked gently. The boy didn't answer. But when Trooper came closer and rested his chin on the edge of the bed, the boy reached out slowly and touched the dog's ear. Then he buried his hand in the fur. Dana held back tears. The boy trusted the dog. That meant there was still something whole inside him. Meanwhile, back at the station, Ray Moreno was sitting in front of a desktop monitor, sipping burnt vending machine coffee and rewinding the security footage again and again. There was something about the way the person in the hoodie moved. Too smooth. No hesitations. They knew where the camera was because they never showed their face. He paused the video and zoomed in on a frame just before the person walked away. One thing stood out. A bracelet, woven thread, pink and white, probably homemade, on the left wrist. Not something a man would typically wear. He grabbed his phone and dialed Dana. Yeah, she answered, her voice hushed. I have something. Not a face, but a clue. Whoever left the suitcase had a pink and white friendship bracelet on their wrist. Dana furrowed her brow. So we're thinking female. Either that or someone trying hard to look like one, Ray said. But here's what's worse. We ran a facial match across known offenders. No results. Whoever this was, not in the system. Dana, you think she'll try to run? Already gone, Ray said. Bus headed eastbound at 5:45 a.m. Could be anywhere by now. That night, Dana brought Trooper back to her place. She couldn't stop thinking about the boy's eyes. Not just scared, guarded, like he'd been trained not to speak. Or maybe punished if he did. She sat on the couch, staring at her wall, sipping cold tea. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Text only. I did what I had to. He's safer now. Don't look for me. Dana froze. The text was untraceable. No number, no ID, just that message. She read it again and again. I did what I had to. He's safer now. Don't look for me. She stared at the screen. Then she looked at Trooper. He growled, not at her, but toward the door. Someone had been there. The sound came again, soft, low, and unmistakable. Trooper stood up from his spot by the door and growled deep in his throat. His ears perked, body stiff, muscles coiled like a loaded spring. Officer Dana Blake froze, her hand resting on the grip of her service pistol. She'd learned long ago not to question her partner's instincts. Trooper, she whispered, moving slowly to the window. The porch light flickered. A breeze brushed against the glass. Nothing moved outside. No footsteps, no shadows, just the rustling of leaves and the occasional buzz of a street lamp fighting the dark. Trooper remained motionless, staring at the door. Then, without a sound, he turned and walked toward the front of the house. His nose hit the floor, following a scent only he could detect. Dana grabbed her flashlight and moved with him. She opened the front door slowly. Nothing. She stepped outside. A package sat on the porch. No label, no tape, just a plain brown box. Trooper sniffed it once, then pulled back slightly. Dana crouched. It wasn't ticking, wasn't leaking, but something about it felt intentional. She pulled on gloves and gently opened the lid. Inside was a child drawing, crayon on notebook paper, a stick figure boy, and a dog. Beside it, a wrinkled, soft pink sock and a snapshot of the boy asleep on a blue couch surrounded by stuffed animals. He looked peaceful. Too peaceful for the boy she'd seen zipped inside a suitcase. Behind the photo was the note. One line printed in black marker. I kept him safe. Now it's your turn. Dames just gaitant. Whoever left this had been watching, knew where she lived, and they weren't threatening her. They were handing off a responsibility, like a guardian passing the baton. The next morning, Dana was back at the hospital, sleep-deprived but focused. The boy, still unnamed, had spent the night under observation. Nurses called him Buddy. He hadn't spoken, but he clung to a stuffed bear the hospital staff gave him. Troopers stayed outside his room like a silent protector. Dana met Dr. Price just outside the nurse's station. We ran a tox screen, Dr. Price said. Nothing abnormal, no signs of drugging, but we found something else. Dana braced herself. He's not registered in any public school system in the Tri-County area. No pediatric records, no recent photos in any federal missing persons database. You're saying, Dana began. Dr. Price nodded. We don't think he was ever reported missing. Dana felt her stomach turn. So someone hid him their entire life. Looks that way. Detective Ray Moreno was already in Dana's squad room when she returned. He was staring at a wall now covered in photographs, maps, and digital printouts. In the middle, tacked to a corkboard, was the image of the suitcase. Beneath it, the phrase, not the first time, in red ink. We found something in the suitcase lining, Ray said. Small piece of fabric buried in the stitching. He handed it to Dana in a plastic baggie. It was a name tag torn from clothing. Faded letters still readable. M. Hollis. Dana blinked. You think that's the boy's name? Ray shrugged. Either that or whoever put him in the suitcase. Dana grabbed her tablet and typed the name into the system. No results. Ray ran a hand through his hair. I also traced the bus route the suspect might have taken. If she stayed on it, she'd be in Oak Ridge by now. That's 2 counties east. Dana muttered, I'm driving out there. Ray said, you should stay with the kid. If she dropped that box at your place, she's watching him or watching you. Dana nodded. Be careful. That afternoon, Dana sat beside the boy in the hospital room. Trooper lay at his feet. A small tray of uneaten applesauce, and pudding sat on the bedside table. The boy was awake, just staring out the window. Hey, Dana said softly. You ever ridden in a police car? It's not that exciting. The sirens are kind of loud, but Trooper loves it. The boy didn't move. Dana reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the drawing from a box. She laid it gently on his lap. Did you draw this? She asked. The boy blinked. His fingers twitched. That's you, isn't it? And the dog. A long pause. Then, finally, the boy whispered, Scout. Dana froze. She leaned closer. Scout. The boy nodded. His voice cracked. His name was Scout. Dana didn't correct him. Whether he meant a stuffed animal, another dog, or a fantasy protector, it didn't matter. You're safe now, she said gently. He looked up at her, eyes wide. Promise. Dana swallowed hard. I promise. That night, Ray called from Oak Ridge. I think I found the drop point, he said. There's a burned-out cabin in the woods about 6 miles from the last bus stop. Local hikers reported smoke 2 days ago. Fire crews said it looked like old paper and fabric burned inside. Anything useful? Dana asked. There's more, Ray said. There were drawings like the one from the box pinned to the walls with nails. The same kid, same dog, and there was a mattress on the floor, kid shoes, toys. Ray's voice dropped. Dana, this wasn't just a place to hide. It was his home. Dana felt a chill. Then why abandon it? Because someone was closing in. Or maybe, he hesitated, maybe she knew she couldn't run forever. The following morning, Dana returned to the station and found an envelope in her mailbox. No postage, no return address, just her name in tight handwriting. Inside was a photo of a woman, blonde, in her mid-30s, freckles, soft eyes. She stood beside the boy, cleaner, healthier, in a field of wildflowers. The same boy who now sat silent in a hospital room. Dana turned the photo over. Another note handwritten. He called me Mama, but I wasn't. Just someone who tried to be. Dana read the line 3 times. Then she picked up her phone and called Ray. "We're not dealing with a traditional abduction," she said. "This woman didn't steal him. She might have rescued him." The moment Dana hung up with Ray, her fingers hovered over the photo one more time. The boy, Buddy, Scout, M. Hollis, whoever he truly was, stood beside a woman in a sunlit field, flowers nearly waist-high, his little hand gripping hers like he trusted her with everything he had. "He called me Mama, but I wasn't just someone who tried to be." The line kept circling her mind like a hawk. It didn't sound like a confession. It sounded like a surrender. And yet, the kid had ended up zippered inside a suitcase. So, what kind of rescuer did that? Dana walked out of her office and found Trooper waiting by the cruiser. His nose twitched. He sniffed the photo in her hand, then turned his head toward the wind, like the scent was there on the breeze, somewhere far off but traceable. "Come on, partner," she said. "Let's go ask some hard questions." They pulled into Oak Ridge just after noon. The town was a sleepy collection of family diners, pawn shops, and shuttered storefronts where folks waved at cops but watched them out of the corners of their eyes. Ray met Dana near the trailhead leading to the burned cabin. The place was cleared by fire crew, but it's untouched since. "You ready for this?" "Do I look ready?" she said, adjusting her vest. Ray smirked. "Never do." The hike wasn't far, maybe 20 minutes up a winding dirt path flanked by tall pines and brush. Birds chirped overhead, but the deeper they went, the quieter it got. Trooper stayed just ahead of them, ears pricked, tail down, scanning. When they reached the cabin, Dana felt something in her stomach twist. It wasn't fear. It was the kind of recognition that only comes when something deeply wrong hits something deeply human. The cabin had no door anymore, just a blackened frame. Inside, the walls were charred halfway up, soot marks licking across the ceiling like shadows frozen midscream, but the floor was intact. And on it, chalk drawings, little blue stick figures, a sun with an oversized smile, a crude dog, tail wagging, a tiny house. And on one wall, not touched by flame, a calendar, hand-drawn and taped together with medical tape. Each day had a sticker, some stars, some hearts, some X's. The last date had none, just a blank square. She was tracking something, Ray muttered. Routine, behavior, safety. Dana said quietly, this wasn't some hiding place. This was her version of structure. Trooper suddenly stiffened, head turned toward the far corner. There, behind a broken chair, they found a small pile of burned books. Children's books, dog stories. One still had a half-legible title, Scout and the Big Brave Day. "That's the name," he whispered, Dana said. "Scout, not Trooper. Scout." Back at the cruiser, Dana reviewed the photo again. Ray leaned against the hood, rubbing his jaw. "She's not in any known registries," he said. "No prints, no records, but the photo was developed at a small photo lab in Marlow, about 40 miles south." "Marlow?" Dana asked. "Town's got one grocery store and 2 gas stations. But there's a clinic. Free walk-ins, no questions asked." Dana felt a spark light up in her brain. "You thinking what I'm thinking? That she took the kid there and paid cash?" Dana nodded. "Let's roll." The clinic receptionist, a young woman named Cassie with dark curls and a tired but kind smile, narrowed her eyes when Dana showed her the photo. "I'm not supposed to release patient info," she said. "We're not here for names," Dana replied. "Just to confirm if you've seen them. This boy was found abandoned, bound, and traumatized. The woman in the photo might have saved him or hurt him. We don't know yet." Cassie sighed and leaned in. "Yeah, I remember her. We called her Willow. Said she didn't have ID. Came in maybe 3 times. The kid had bruises. She cried when we asked if she wanted to talk to someone. Said she was just passing through." "Did she ever mention where she came from?" Ray asked. Cassie shook her head. "No, but she asked about where to get wood stove parts and if anyone fixed roofs around here. She was building something or trying to. Said she didn't trust shelters." Donna nodded slowly. "Did she leave any contact info?" Cassie hesitated, then pulled a post-it from the desk drawer. "She left this behind once. Said it was an emergency number in case she didn't come back. A 10-digit number was burned into the corner. Dana snapped a photo. "Thanks," she said. "You may have just saved that kid's life all over again." Later that night, Dana and Ray sat at a diner with steaming mugs of black coffee and too much unsaid between them. "You believe her?" Ray asked finally. "That she was trying to protect him." Dana stared out the window where a trooper rested in the cruiser, tail thumping now and then in his sleep. "I don't know yet," she said. But he trusted her. That kid, he doesn't flinch at the idea of her. Not like he would if she'd been the one hurting him. Ray sighed. "So what's next?" Dana reached into her coat, pulled out the photo again, and then the drawing from the suitcase. "Look at this," she said. "The flowers, same ones from Oak Ridge, and this drawing. It's the same house, same field." Ray leaned closer. "She's been circling this area for a while. She didn't vanish. She's hiding in plain sight. And if we don't find her soon, someone else might. Someone who doesn't care why she did it." Ray looked up. "You're thinking the kid wasn't her only secret." Dana folded the drawing and stood. "I'm thinking we've only scratched the surface." Back at the hospital, the boy was sitting up for the first time. A nurse had managed to get him to eat half a grilled cheese sandwich and some applesauce. When Dana stepped into the room, he looked up and smiled faintly. Trooper trotted to his side, nudging his hand. "You know," Dana said, "that picture you drew, it was beautiful. I saw the house." The boy's eyes lit up. "With the blue door?" Donna nodded. "Yeah, and the flowers and the dog." He smiled again. "Scout liked the flowers." Dana leaned forward. "Was Scout your dog?" The boy shook his head slowly. "No, he was hers. But he let me ride on his back sometimes." She said it was okay. Said he was old but still strong. Dana's heart clenched. "Do you remember what she called you?" she asked. He nodded. "Miles." Donna froze. The name on the tag, M. Hollis. Finally, a name. Finally, a piece. And still so much missing. It was almost midnight when Dana sat alone in her cruiser, parked across the street from the hospital. Trooper snored lightly in the back seat, his paw twitching like he was chasing something in his dreams. Dana's fingers tapped restlessly on the steering wheel. Miles Hollis. The boy finally had a name. It wasn't much, but it was something. A thread. She kept thinking about the way he'd said it. Soft and proud, like it was something he hadn't heard in a while. Like it had been taken from him. She pulled out her laptop and started digging. There was no birth certificate for a Miles Hollis in Ohio. No medical records, no school enrollment. But then, deep in a third-tier database used for legacy child welfare cases, a flag popped up. Name, Miles Hollis. DOB, unknown. Custodial status, protective custody transfer, 2019. Case ID, redacted. Parent/guardian. Rains, Camila, maternal relative, non-custodial. Caseworker assigned. J. Henley. Status, closed, discontinued. Dana stared at the screen. Protective custody. Maternal relative. Rains, Camila. The borehole rang a bell, and not in a good way. She reached into her glove box, pulled out her notepad, and flipped back to an earlier page. Back when the suitcase was first discovered, Ray had said the woman on the bus looked familiar, but they couldn't get a match. Now they had one. The next morning, Dana stood in front of a faded government building just outside Columbus. Family and Youth Services. The kind of place with outdated carpet, flickering overhead lights, and a vending machine that hadn't worked in a decade. She had an appointment with Janice Henley, a veteran caseworker who looked like she'd seen too much and wasn't impressed by anything anymore. Janice glanced at the folder in front of her, then up at Dana. "I remember this case." "You remember Miles?" Dana asked. Janice nodded. "And Camila? It was a nightmare from day one." "Walk me through it." Janice sighed, leaning back in her chair. Miles was placed in emergency custody after a domestic incident involving his biological father. It wasn't publicized. No media. Very hush-hush. Turns out the dad, Martin Hollis, had a sealed file from a previous abuse case that the courts missed when he filed for custody. Dana blinked. "You're saying they handed the boy over to a man with a sealed record?" Janice gave a bitter laugh. You'd be surprised how many red flags get buried under paperwork. Camila Raines tried to intervene. She was the boy's half-aunt through his mother. No legal claim, but she begged us to investigate. And did you? We tried, but she had no standing, and no one in her family would testify. She didn't even have stable housing at the time. Case closed. Boy returned to the father. Dana sat forward. But then what? Janice hesitated. A few weeks later, the father and Miles disappeared. Just vanished. No police follow-up, no news report. But I always suspected Camila took him. Why? Janice lowered her voice. Because if you read between the lines, Camila wasn't running from the law. She was running from a system that failed him. Outside the building, Dana stood for a long time on the sidewalk, staring at the trees swaying in the breeze. Trooper nudged her leg, sensing her unease. Camila Raines hadn't stolen the boy. She'd rescued him. But that still didn't answer the question. Why leave him in a suitcase? She got into the cruiser and called Ray. "You're not going to believe this," she said. Ray listened as she laid out everything. Camila's connection to Miles, the broken system, the caseworker's suspicions. He exhaled hard. So, she's been raising him off-grid for nearly 5 years. Looks that way. Ray went quiet for a moment. Dana, there's something else. You remember that number from the post-it the clinic gave us? Yeah. We got a ping. Burner phone. Last active 72 hours ago in Ravens Hollow. That's just north of the National Forest. Dana's heart skipped. That's deep woods. Exactly. Perfect place to hide. The drive to Ravens Hollow took 2 hours. As they neared the edge of the forest, the paved road turned to gravel, and the GPS went dead. Trooper was wide awake now, tail stiff, nose twitching. They pulled up to a rundown trailhead. No signs, no clear path, just miles of trees and silence. Ray met Dana at the entrance. He had his jacket zipped and flashlight ready. "You sure she's still out here?" she asked. "Not sure of anything," Ray said, "but I got a gut feeling." And Trooper seems to agree. Trooper barked once and took off into the trees. They followed him for half a mile before the trail opened up into a clearing. And there it was, a makeshift cabin built by hand. Tin roof, patched windows, stacked wood outside. Smoke curled faintly from a pipe on the roof. Someone was home. Dana drew her weapon. "We go in careful." Ray nodded. But before they could step closer, a voice called out from inside. "You can put your guns down. I'm not going to run." It was a woman's voice. Calm, tired, familiar. Dana stepped forward slowly. Camila Raines stepped into the doorway. She looked older than in the photo. Dark circles under her eyes, sunken cheeks, but still had the same gentle presence. She raised her hands. "You found him, didn't you?" Dana nodded. "He's safe." Camila's lips trembled just for a second. "Good. That's all I ever wanted." Ray cuffed her gently. She didn't resist. As they walked her toward the car, she looked at Dana. "I knew someone would come eventually, but I had to give him a chance." Dana looked at her. "Why the suitcase, Camila?" Camila stopped walking. Her voice cracked. "Because I was being followed by someone who knew where we were. I panicked. I had no time. I knew the only place he'd be found quickly was somewhere 8K9 would notice. It was stupid, but it was all I had left." That night, Dana sat in the hospital hallway as Camila was processed downtown. Miles was asleep in his room. A nurse had tucked in his blanket and turned on a soft ocean sound machine. Trooper sat outside the door, as always. Dana scrolled through her notes. Her heart ached. The justice system didn't always get it right. But a woman with nothing but instinct, a dog with war-worn training, and a boy who had never stopped trusting. That's what had saved him. Not the badge, not the system, just love and loyalty. The courthouse was quiet that morning. Not the shouting kind of courthouse you see on TV, just the kind where people sit with folded hands, tired eyes, and too many regrets packed into too few words. Camila Raines stood before the judge in a simple gray sweatshirt, her hands cuffed, but her voice steady. "I didn't take him to hurt him," she said. "I took him because no one else would listen, and because I knew if I left him there, he wouldn't survive. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just told the truth. And in the back row of the courtroom, Officer Dana Blake sat next to Miles Hollis, clean, fed, and finally smiling. Trooper lay at his feet, his tail thumping gently against the wood floor every time someone glanced their way. The prosecutor recommended leniency. The judge ordered a psychological evaluation, community service, and immediate placement of Miles into temporary protective custody with a request to fast-track full guardianship for a vetted foster family or a qualified public servant. Donna blinked. "What?" she whispered to the court-appointed advocate beside her. The woman smiled. "You've been with him since the start. The board's willing to consider your home if you're willing to foster him until final placement." Dana looked down at Miles. He was staring up at her, wide-eyed. She didn't even need to answer. He reached for her hand and nodded once, like he already knew what she was going to say. The weeks that followed were filled with paperwork, counseling appointments, and home visits from family services. Dana's small two-bedroom home quickly turned into a real family space. Puzzles on the coffee table, a pile of sketchbooks on the kitchen counter, and dog fur on just about every surface. Miles wasn't talkative, but he didn't need to be. He started calling her Dee and called Trooper T. They were short names, soft, easy to whisper when he woke up from nightmares or crawled onto the couch during storms. Trooper became his shadow, following him from room to room, laying beneath the dinner table, always positioned between Miles and any open door. It was more than instinct. It was devotion. And slowly, Miles began to heal. He laughed the first time Trooper barked at the vacuum cleaner. He beamed when Dana bought him a new backpack and told him he could pick out his own lunchbox for school. He didn't draw the suitcase anymore. He drew open fields, sunshine, trees. Sometimes a small house with a tin roof and a dog named Scout sitting on the porch. One Saturday morning, a few months after the court hearing, Dana got a call. It was Ray. "You might want to turn on the news," he said. She clicked on the TV. Channel 6 local broadcast. Breaking. State agency under investigation after child custody files linked to failed case from 2019 resurface. Ray's voice came through the phone. Whistleblower from Family Services submitted a full internal audit. Looks like Camila's accusations weren't just emotional, they were factual. Miles's father had 2 sealed reports for child endangerment. The judge who granted custody quietly retired last year. Dana sat down slowly. "So what happens now?" she asked. "They'll open a formal inquiry, probably drop all remaining charges against Camila. The system screwed up badly." Dana turned the volume down and looked at the framed photo on her mantel. Miles and Trooper sitting on the porch, side by side, peaceful, safe. For once, justice wasn't just a word. It was a door that had finally been opened. Camila was released under supervision a week later. She declined all media interviews and retreated into the background quietly, just like she had lived for years. But one afternoon, with approval from the caseworker and therapists, she met Dana and Miles at a local park. She brought a stuffed bear and a tattered book, Scout and the Big Brave Day. Miles didn't say much. He just ran to her, held her for a long time, then stepped back and said, "You did keep me safe." Camila smiled. "I tried, baby." Dana watched from a bench nearby, Trooper's head resting on her thigh. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real, and in the real world, that was more than enough. A month later, Dana stood in front of a packed auditorium at the Riverstone Town Hall. The mayor, a man more comfortable cutting ribbons than giving speeches, nervously tapped the mic. "Today we recognize Officer Dana Blake and K-9 Trooper for extraordinary service and heroism. But more than that, we recognize the power of following your gut and the bond between a boy and a dog who simply refused to give up on each other." The crowd clapped. Dana didn't take the mic. She just knelt beside Trooper, who wore a shiny new tag and a ribbon around his collar, and said, "You saved him. You saved us both." Miles ran onto the stage and hugged them both as the crowd stood. That night, after the applause faded and the lights dimmed, Dana tucked Miles into bed, turned on his ocean sounds, and turned off the lamp. "You ever scared anymore?" she asked. Miles shook his head. "Because of Trooper," he thought for a moment. "Because I know I'm not lost anymore." Dana kissed his forehead. You were never lost, kid. You were just waiting to be found. From that day forward, every time Dana and Trooper walked through the Riverstone Transit Station, be it for patrol or errands, people stopped. Some to shake her hand, some to pet Trooper, and some just to say thank you. Because even though it had started with an old suitcase and a growl in the morning fog, it had ended in something far greater. A second chance, a found family, a town forever changed. Thank you for following Miles, Trooper, and Dana on this emotional journey. Stories like this remind us of how deeply dogs can sense the things we miss, how they protect without question, love without conditions, and fight for us even when the world won't. What would you have done if you were in Dana's shoes that morning at the bus station? Would you have trusted the dog's instinct or waited for protocol? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. True tales of courage, compassion, and the animals who never stop fighting for us.